live. Welcome to stream on YouTube. I'm also live on Facebook as well on my phone whilst this is happening. The Facebook isn't working. It says trying to reconnect. It keeps saying that. Just going to be my main live. So this is going to just be going back over my life story again, as some of you on Facebook, or sorry, some of you on YouTube may not be aware of my Facebook and the content I've been posting here. So I'm just going to be going over a few things. Um, so my name is EM.Dennehy. I'm 15 years of age. I have been in care for my whole life, practically. I have been in the care system since the age of 4. Um, so I'm going to be going over my life story as a child in care, um, and everything that's led up to today. So I was put into care when I was 4 years of age because my mom and dad had broken up. My dad was a very abusive man to my mother. He is a alcoholic, a functioning alcoholic, but both of my parents have extreme conditions of narcissism, very sadly. So when I was taken into care, since day one, I was separated from my whole family. All of my siblings, they stayed together, but they separated me. This is probably due to not one, but two misdiagnoses of autism. I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 4, which was the year that I went into care. And that diagnosis was retracted. They said, hold on, actually, never mind. He doesn't have autism. We got it wrong. And then at the age of 5 or 6, they diagnosed me with autism again. Lastly, they again took it back. So to this day, I don't have any diagnosis of autism, although I would identify as autistic because I have a few friends who do have autistic children, and a lot of people have said they can see that in me, in a good way. I think it's one of the best diagnoses you can have. I absolutely own it and I love it. It is who I am. But sadly, they have been able to manipulate a lot within the system due to that diagnosis. Right, live. This one is gone. Trying to reconnect. The lads, they don't want me telling my story. Too powerful. They don't want the truth getting out there. Okay, we're back now again on this one. Right, this is a fuck poster. This is. Um, lads, sorry about this now. I'm cutting in and out. I hope it comes out grand, alright. Um, as this is an important live stream. Yep. Gone again. Right. So, anyways, back on topic. So, they've used those diagnoses against me in the past. So instantly I was separated, and I was put into a foster placement when I was only about 4, which I can't really remember that foster placement as I was extremely young at the time. Um, but that was only about a year, not even, and I moved into my first horrific and traumatic placement, which was with Michael and Tina. It was a foster placement in Toonsbridge in Macroom, County Cork. And I was there for 7 years. Now, these people are alcoholics as well themselves, actually, it just so happens. Um, but the things I went through there were horrific. So before I tell my story, I just want to warn everyone who is watching that this is a very sensitive story. So I just want to give a trigger warning because I am going to go into more detail that I have ever gone into in my whole life about these placements. Sorry now, I'm trying to place down my phone on my blanket, but it's been a bit of a pain in the arse. Maybe if I be smart and put it up here. But it's on the radiator, so that's probably bad for the phone. Sorry about this now, lads. You'll have to bear with me. This is my first live stream on YouTube. Um, right, that's perfect. So, I was the first year or two was okay in that placement, but again, I was very young, so it's only vivid memories. But as I got older, obviously, I remember more things. So Tina was more of a mental slash verbal kind of abuser. She would have done a lot of punishments, like publicly embarrassing me, stopping me from seeing my family when I had access as a punishment. Um, and then there was Michael, her husband, who, in no disrespectful way, was a very heavy man. So he was very strong, and I was only a small child, and he had very bad anger issues, and he would have been a physical abuser. Tina was an alcoholic, although Michael wouldn't have been as much of an alcoholic. He didn't really drink. He didn't smoke at all. Tina was a heavy smoker, a heavy drinker. She would be drinking a lot during the daytime. Um, and I remember, you know, always seeing empty beer bottles and wine bottles around the house, and yeah, it wasn't a nice environment. Now I wasn't the only foster child with Michael and Tina. There was another child there, who I won't name, but a lovely child, God bless him, and I have lost contact with him for many years, and I pray to God that he's doing well, and that he is safe, and that he has achieved whatever life goals he may have set himself, because he absolutely deserves it. Um, so there was a lot of things that happened there. At the time of me living there, I was my allocated um, my allocated social worker was Yvonne, or not Yvonne, Lynn Jeffries. Um, what am I saying? Lynn Dixon, sorry. I haven't slept at all last night. Lynn Dixon was my social worker. Yvonne Jeffries is my current social worker, alongside with Jimmy, who I'm not sure of his second name. Um, but Lynn Dixon, she was a lovely social worker, but she covered up a lot of the neglect and abuse that went on in that home, um, as they do with everyone and everywhere. Um, so I remember there was so many times where I'll go into detail, but it's a very hard story to tell. Tina was a very she wasn't very mentally stable, is how I shall put it. And she'd done some things that were very not normal and very concerning for anybody in any situation to do. She would often do things like, when we were all asleep, she would go downstairs and she would urinate all over the couch, and she would blame me and say I done it, and that I was. She'd tell the social services, um, that I was peeing and urinating all over the couch on purpose, intentionally. Um, and I remember it was just like one of those. You know the way we all have a specific day we don't like of the month. We might hate Mondays or Tuesdays, or you might have a meeting on a certain day that you dread. And for me as a child, it was a day where this had happened. I dreaded. So I remember I'd get out of bed at around maybe 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and she would just be standing there by the couch with the whole family saying, "Oh, you fucking pissing all over the couch like a dog. Clean up after this mess, you filthy animal." She would make me strip the whole couch fabrics without any gloves nothing like that. And this wasn't my urine either, so I was cleaning up after someone else's urine, which made me very sick at times. And she would rub it in my face. She'd make me smell it. She'd make me sniff it. Um, or like she'd make me lie down on it. And I'd be covered in urination. Um, and she'd make me clean it and put back on fresh kind of fabrics, fresh clothing for it. And all of her daughters, who were all grown up at the time and still are, the oldest is in their mid, maybe late 30s, um, they'd all shame me and punish me for something that I hadn't done. It was absolutely horrendous mental torture, is what it was. Um, Olivia, I will get to that in a bit. I'm just talking about my foster placement I used to be in. Um, my beautiful eyes, Deborah. I always have my hair over my eyes, but these are my eyes. They're hazel eyes. Let me show YouTube as well. Um, but so she would have done a lot of very concerning and just really bizarre things like that. There'd be a lot of days where, well, actually, another thing as well is in the morning time. I'll go through a day by day routine. She would control what I'd eat, so I didn't have a say in what I'd eat. She would pick what cereal I'll eat. She would pick what I have for lunch and dinner. I wasn't allowed any snacks like biscuits or stuff like that. It was a completely controlled diet by these foster parents. Um, Neither of them had jobs, although I think Michael was a builder and just kind of done jobs for friends and stuff for a bit of money. But Tina wasn't working at all, and she was kind of a stay-at-home mom, alcoholic stay-at-home mom. Um, and she was there all day, every day, smoking, drinking, watching Coronation Street. Um, the reason why they fostered me, being realistic, is because they were on their way to retirement. They are retired now. They were a very, very rich family. They had a huge camper van. They'd go on holidays at least once, if not twice a year, to places like France, um, Wales, places like that. Um, Sometimes they'd bring me, sometimes they'd leave me there by myself, and their older children who were over 18 would look after me, although there was two of her daughters who were under 18 who were left to care for me at times. Hi Patricia, I hope you're doing well. Um, so yeah, that would be the morning time, and she would allow me to socialize. So the was the other child who was there, the foster child. He was always getting the bus, right? So he'd wait for the bus to come to the house. And our schools at different times, I think there was about half an hour to an hour maximum of time differences for our schools because we were in different schools. And throughout that time where we were at the house and he was waiting for his bus and I had just gotten up, getting my cereal and stuff like that, I wasn't allowed to speak to him. I wasn't allowed to socialize with him. We were separated quite often, and I was stopped from having those kind of friendships and relationships with people, which they still do to this day. Um, Living with Tina, it was all I ever knew. The abuse I went through was all I ever knew, and I just thought it was so normal. Um, and I noticed a lot of the things I'm saying. I am a huge fan of Charmaine Mulligan. She is a huge inspiration, um, and a lot of other people as well. I happened to come across her interview that she had done a while back, and she kind of said it herself. It just became the norm. Now she was through slightly different things, but when it comes to abuse, and you're in abuse for so many years, it's just, it becomes all you know. Um, so I was a very different child. The way I processed things, the way I done things was very differently because of my environment. Um, so I'd go to school. I remember for a lot of years I was in a special needs class, and when I was eventually moved into a normal classroom, um, I had a special needs teacher, like no, an SEA. I forget what the thing is. But it was a special needs assistant, something like that. Anyways, I remember I was often getting into trouble at school because I was always kind of anti-school. Even at the age of 6, I was shouting and fighting with my principal, saying I want to be in a normal classroom with other children. SNA, yes. Special needs assistant, yes, yes. Thank you. Um, and I always remember at such a young age, instantly I was awake to these systems, and I thought, I want to be in a normal classroom with children. I want to be treated the same as others. And they were like, no, no, can't happen, blah, blah, blah. And I kept fighting. I remember I kept getting in trouble, and time after time, I was sitting in the principal's office. He just kind of shook his head, and he didn't know what to do with me. I was a very difficult child, which I'm proud of because, you know what, don't take that the wrong way, but what I mean when I say I was a difficult child is I was very awake, and I knew what I wanted, and I knew what was right and wrong, and I always told the truth. And that's why it made it very difficult for people, because these child predators, these pedophiles, rapists, murderers, all these people, they they kind of run the other direction from me, because they know if no matter what they do to me, I will speak up the same way as I am now about Michael and Tina. So yeah, school was a bit of an issue, but that was only because I wasn't getting the right supports that I needed. Um, so school was an issue, and I'd be punished a lot for that. Um, I would be. Michael was very aggressive, like I said. He would often hit me, or like what he'd often do is he'd like pull me by the ear really hard and tug on it. Um, he'd really violently shake me and shout and threaten me. Um, and Tina just kind of watched, and she was just kind of saying nasty things in the background. I remember there was one time where he had gotten so violent, he had quite literally dragged me from the sitting room to my bedroom, across the sitting room, which is an open plan, so it was a massive house, from the sitting room through to the hallway through into my bedroom, just by my hair. One hand by my hair, like as if I was a dog. Um, they'd often keep me in my room. They never locked me, but again, I didn't understand why these things were happening. So they'd keep me in my room for hours upon hours, and I wouldn't dare to leave, because that was just like, for me at that age, that was like, oh, that's not what you do. You do not leave your room. This is my timeout. That was one of the things I always obeyed. So mentally, they locked me up in that room because I was too fearful to say, no, I'm not going to my room. Uh, no, I'm leaving my room. I haven't done anything wrong. No. If they could keep me in my room for 10 hours with my door wide open and it'd be unlocked, but due to that fear that they had put in me, they were mentally locking me up in my room. It was the fear that stopped me from leaving my room, and I'd go hours without eating, or without food, or without going to the bathroom whilst I was in my room as a punishment. Um, or like I remember, I had like lots of Legos and teddy bears and stuff that was kept under the stairs. I wasn't allowed to have them in my room for some reason. And, you know, Tina, or sometimes the dog as well, would urinate over that. Like, no, for dogs were house trained. It was just a very unhealthy, unhygienic house. Um, and I remember I was often sick. I had a flu, like a cough. It was like the 60-day cough. I got that quite often. And over time from that, I've developed iron deficiencies. I have a undiagnosed eating disorder. I can't eat. Um, Michael and Tina was the start to the horrendous abuse and trauma. They'd often try and get me to call my mom and tell her I didn't want to speak to her anymore. Like it'd be like, "Oh, Lynn's on the phone. Tell her you don't want to see your mom next week." So Tina was very horrible about my mother. She'd have nothing good to say about her because even though me and my mom had fallen out, my mom couldn't stand the sight of either of them. She hated them with a passion. Um, so it took 7 years for Lynn to decide that I was going to be moved. Um, that's just kind of skipping a few things. That's just kind of, you know, shortening the story. And I went to my auntie's house. I was fostered by my auntie for about a year. But of course, that placement broke down because of the mental trauma I had endured and how unstable and hurt I was from 7 years of horrendous abuse. I wasn't able to settle down in a normal, safe environment. My auntie did treat me very well, and it was a lovely house and a very welcoming environment. Um, but I just couldn't. I was always watching over my shoulder. I was always, like if I'd done something wrong, and my auntie, she was very calm. She'd sit at the table and calmly tell me, normal family, okay, this isn't right, and I'd be fearful. I said, is she going to hit me now, or um, what is she going to do to punish me? And she never done anything like that. She was so good to me. God bless that woman. But I just wasn't able to adapt to a real normal environment because I had been used to such a horrendous environment for basically my whole life at that point. Um, I remember I would have often talked to my auntie about the abuse I went through, but she never entertained it. She never really wanted to hear about it. I don't know, is this because she just, as a mother, felt horrible and she couldn't face it head on, or I don't know what it was, but it was just a no go topic. I was not allowed to talk about Tina in that home. So that placement broke down because after the horrendous abuse, I wasn't offered any support or help. They never recognized the abuse. They never said, yeah, you were abused, I really apologize. They just used the excuse of, well, you're not settling down here, you're not cooperating with this placement. That was kind of their reason for moving me out of there. But obviously they knew the real reason. So I was in therapy. I was in therapy whilst I was in Michael and Tina's place. That got cut off a while back, very sadly. Um, and so that placement broke down, and I went into my first residential care home, and this was the new chapter. This when I went into my first residential care home, Ashview in Mitchelstown, County Cork. Um, this was when I became aware of the social services aspect because before then I was always in a foster home. So it was a family, it was a normal house where it was just normal day to day, like as if they were your parents basically. But then I went into my first residential and I saw the professional, formal side of it, the policies and regulations, and social care workers and inspectors and child ombudsman and this, that, and the other. And I just absolutely rebelled in my first residential care home. I just went ballistic. I said, I'm not having this. It was basically like a mental asylum, really, for children. I was always, again, treated very differently there, which is probably due to the diagnose. Um, so, like, they just never gave me the right placement with the right supports, which always led me to acting out. Because if a child isn't in the right environment or happy, they're going to act out. Um, this is just after cancelling for some reason. I don't know what's after happening here now. My Facebook, they're after cutting me off my live, so I've just gone live again. I will be sharing this live on Facebook though, but it was just horrendous. I reached out to a friend. We lost communication for a while, but a young person I was living with in that residential care home, and she agreed that it was just horrendous what was going on there. Again, my mother absolutely despised that home. I remember the house manager, Paula, and my mom had awful arguments and fights in front of me. It was just completely unprofessional. Um, and I've just been going place to place my whole life. When I was in Michael and Tina's place, I was about 9 or 10 when they told me that all my siblings were going home to my dad, Vincent. And I remember I was so excited. I was ready to start packing my bags. I thought finally I'm leaving Michael and Tina. And then they continued and they said, but you won't be going home. Um, and that absolutely broke my heart. They put me on the phone to my dad and said he couldn't manage me. He could only manage my four siblings and not me. But that was just a stupid excuse, because if you can't manage all of your children, you shouldn't have any of your children, because if you truly love your children, no parent can pick and choose what child comes home. Let's be realistic. Um, this was because the real reason was because I was rebelling against my dad. I always, not rebellion against him, but I always chose my mom's side. I always saw, okay, like my mom is telling the truth. You know, he mistreated my mom, and so he chose not to take me home. And about 8 months ago, they put all the children from Vincent's house back into care for a second time and remain in care because he quote unquote started drinking. Although me and my mother knew that he never stopped drinking. Um, Throughout these residentials, I ended up picking up charges because I started rebelling against the system, and you already know, once you go against your system and you fight against the system, they just absolutely shut you up. That system gets very nasty when you go against it. They can be lovely. They'll give you benefits and they'll give you supports and services, but as soon as you point something out in that system that is false and corrupt, then they will put you through torture, absolute torture. I struggle from PTSD on top of my autism diagnosis. Um, and so I picked up charges here and there, and I've been running away, all sorts. Now, in terms of what's happening at the moment with my course, I will not discuss it because I do have to be very careful that I have to protect the privacy and information and evidence in that case. So I won't be commenting any more about it, but what I will say is I am staying hopeful, praying, and I ask that she pray for me as well. But yeah, I have to go very silent on that for the moment and possibly long term. I could be done for contempt of court if I speak of the court. Um, so I won't get into that. Um, I we need to do something. Like I think we've kind of been stuck in this loophole of recognizing and talking about what's happened and oh yeah we'll do an interview or make a post and make an app or a website and yeah fine that's progress but then what then what we need to do something that's never been done before. We need to go back on the streets. We need to start waving our flags again. We need to I it's the only way I see it possible. But we need to shut down the system. I'm not having my future children in care saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to shut down the system eventually." You know, enough is enough. We've done the talking. We've done all of that. So enough of the talking. We need more action, and I do have to say, there are people who are doing fucking amazing things, which I have to credit. Uh, but there's just not enough of us who are doing the max we can. There is more we could do, but we just aren't. Because, oh, I have an appointment next week, or, oh, this is coming up, so I can't go to that protest, or, and people are like, we can't drop everything and just, fight the system. We have our own lives. That is the most selfish thing I've ever heard. Okay, but this is who I am, this is my life. I am a protester, I am an activist, and I will fight the system till the day I die. That's my life. If that's a quote unquote wasted life or not a way to live, it's not about me. This isn't about me. I've been in care for 12 years. I'll never get those 12 years back. Do you get me? What I've been through, that will never be undone. Generation and families and I don't know.